Hi, welcome to this edition of Digital Discoveries, and in this episode we're going to be talking mainly to our teachers here in EPISD because there's some technology updates that we want to let you know about, some instructional technology updates. So that's the title of our episode today, is some instructional technology updates, and they mainly cover two main things that we use here in EPISD. One is atomic learning and the other is Project Share. So let's go ahead and talk about these updates. The first one we want to talk about is atomic learning. Now, atomic learning is that service that's provided for all of our teachers, all of our students, and also all of our students' parents. So every family member in EPISD has access to atomic learning. So if you recall from previous digital discoveries that we've talked about, student and parent accounts are available on each school's website. All you got to do is go to the school's website, and up in the upper right-hand corner of each website is the login for that school. So if you're a parent, it's got a login. Student, there's a login. But for our teachers, the login has changed just a little bit, and so we want to talk a little bit to our teachers about how that login's changed. So let's look at that way we used to do it. In the old login method, we used to go to atomiclearning.com. That was the screen that we'd go to, and let me pull that up just so you can remember what that looks like. That's the old Atomic Learning. It looked exactly like that, and you'd log in, you'd go over here, you'd click on login, you type in your username and your password. That's the old way of doing that. We're no longer doing that in EPISD, and the reason that we're no longer doing it in EPISD is because what we're trying to do as a district is make it so that for our employees, all of our teachers and well, just all of our employees, the login for everything that they go to is the same for everything. So you log into My EPISD, you use your username and password, you log into something that may not even be part of EPISD, like Atomic Learning. We want you to be able to still use your EPISD username and password. So we're kind of making it easier in the fact that your username and password is going to be the same for Atomic Learning, but there's a trick to it that we need to tell you about, is that you're not actually going to the Atomic Learning website. So where you're going to be going now is this new website, and it's a little bit longer. It's atomiclearning.com/login/EPISD. We're going to put that up on My EPISD so everybody can see that, but if you're able to jot that down, that's a great way of remembering. Just jot it down somewhere, save it on your desktop, or make it a bookmark in your URL if you use Atomic Learning a lot. So let's look what that looks like. It looks a little bit different than the old Atomic Learning login. And again, it's because we're trying to make things a little bit different and a little bit easier to log in. So this is what the new space looks like, and that's because this website goes to our servers, and then from our servers you pop out to Atomic Learning. So here is where you would go to log into Atomic Learning, and you just type in your username and password, and you'd use your username and password. That's your EPISD username and password. So if you know how to log into your mail, if you know how to log into My EPISD, then you now know how to log into this Atomic Learning. So let's give an example real quick. So your username and password is now, of course, in Atomic Learning. It's your EPISD username and password. So let's use my favorite teacher, bxmanilo. He's really not a teacher in EPISD, but if he was, maybe that would be his username, bxmanilo, and then his password, Mandy1975. So it would be the same. That would be his EPISD one, and now it's his Atomic Learning one. So that's the update to Atomic Learning. There's a new login space to go to. It's that email, that URL that we just showed you, and of course now to log in, you just have to use your EPISD username and password. So that's the update on Atomic Learning. So now let's talk about Project Share. Project Share is something that our teachers are really starting to adopt, and there's lots and lots of teachers that are being required by state mandated training to go to Project Share. So if you're not on to Project Share yet, you're going to be soon, because if you're doing any kind of state-related training, Project Share is where the TEA is asking you to go. And so I know, for instance, the science teachers this year all had to do their safety training on Project Share. If you're interested in doing something like the Intel Teach to the Future, that's now on Project Share. So all these trainings that are like statewide trainings are on that Project Share. So what's the difference here in Project Share? Well, we're going to talk a little bit here about teacher accounts, how the teacher accounts have changed in Project Share. The login is still the same. The login is still the same. Now, what's changed is the password. The password has changed. And so the password, and again, you may recall just a few minutes ago I said we're trying to get everybody to use the same username and password. We're not quite there yet on Project Share. But for Project Share, the password has changed. So the old password is whatever you had. And so because we've just recently did a major upload of data, we uploaded all of our students, we redid all of our teachers, because what we've done is we've contracted with the company that runs Project Share to make sure that all of our teachers are up to date and all of our students are up to date as often as possible. So we're like updating data every single week. We're giving them new data, so when new students come in, new teachers come in, that company has that list. Because we had to do that, because we had to send them that new database, everyone's password has changed. And so people that are logging in are like, no, my password's changed. How do I log into Project Share? It's real easy. The old password was whatever you had. That old, maybe, name of your dog, Fluffy or Spot or whatever. But your new password, the new password to log in is your EPISD username, whatever that is, your EPISD email username, plus the last 4 digits of your social security number. So the new login for Project Share is the username stays the same as you've always had, but the password is your username plus the last 4 digits of your social security number. So let's go back to our original example. So here's our guy, Mr. Manilo. His username still stays the same, bxmanilo, whatever that was. Now some of you may have a username that's a little bit different. And that's because in Epsilon, we can't control the usernames. And so we can control them to a point, but Epsilon produces the usernames. So if you're Jose Lopez, for instance, well, your username in EPISD might be J Lopez, but there might be 100 J Lopez's in the Epsilon user universe there. So you might be J Lopez 24, J Lopez 25 in Epsilon. So that username that you've always had stays the same. So the username usually is your EPISD username, but not always. But you should know by now what your username is. The new password is your same, your username plus the last 4 digits of your social security number. So there's an example there. bxmanilo 1975. So that was the username, that's the password. So remember those last 4 digits. So some people are calling, they're like, I can't get in, I don't know my password. So what happens if you completely forget this? You completely forget that I'm telling you, here's your new password. You can always go up to Project Share and click on the little button that says Forgot Password, and they'll send you what your password is. You can also, after you've gone into your account, you can actually change your password to what it is. So let me show you really quick on Project Share what that looks like. In Project Share, on the Project Share screen, everyone should know by now how to log in, where the login screen is. But if you ever forget your password up there, you're like, I don't know how to do it. What do I do? Well, right underneath the username and password, if you've never logged in or if you're having issues, you can say, I click the username or click my password. And those are all related to your EPISD email account. So once you say, I forgot my password, they'll send you your password in your email account. For teachers that have never, ever used Project Share, and you're like, I don't know my username, I don't know my password, I don't know any of that, because I've never been asked to use it, you can always click on Reactivate Account. That's that one right there. If you click on Reactivate Account, that'll send you all the information, your username and your password. So just to reiterate here, just to remember what we were talking about, the passwords have all changed in Project Share. The passwords have all changed in Project Share. So it's now your password is your username plus the last 4 digits, your EPISD username plus the last 4 digits of your Social Security number. So, all right, so that's the teacher portion of Project Share. Now we want to talk about something that we're pushing out, and you are the first to know about it because we haven't told anybody yet. So, you ready? Okay. So let's talk a little bit about student accounts. Project Share has been rolled out for 2 years now in Texas, and in those 2 years they've tried to get all the teachers logged in, and that's been successful. All teachers in the state of Texas are now at least logged into Project Share. They may not be using it, but they're at least logged into it. Now the next phase happens is that all students are now given accounts in Project Share, and that's true in EPISD as well. So all students, as of today, now have accounts in Project Share. So what does that mean? Well, let's talk about it a little bit. The student accounts, it's not exactly the same as a teacher account, but what it does is that it allows students to take notes, keep them online, gives them places where they can keep their materials, they can access teacher websites, they can access other websites, they can actually maintain their own website on Project Share. So now all EPISD students have active Project Share accounts. So, how do we do this if students don't have EPISD email accounts? Some students have the Live at EDU accounts. Some students don't have those Live at EDU accounts. We were kind of deciding how are we going to do that. And so what we ended up doing is we allowed Project Share to generate the student's username. So the student's username is unique to that student. And every single student has, it's not tied into an email account, it's not tied into something else. So, you know, if there's a student, Tim Holt, their username might be T Holt, it might be TB Holt, who knows what it is. The student has to find that out, and we'll tell you how to find that out in just a sec. But just to let you know, that username is unique to the student. It's unique to that student. The password for each student to get into Project Share, the password is going to be their student ID. That's also something that's unique to the student. So the password and the student ID, the password is the student's ID, that 6-digit ID number. So how are they going to find out what their student username is? This is how we're going to do it. On each campus, we're going to provide a spreadsheet to the librarians, and the librarians are going to hand out the usernames to the students. So the students are going to have to go to the library to get their unique username, okay? So their username and their password, they already know their password because their password is their ID number, but they don't know their username. This is one of the compromises we had to do because not all of our students have email accounts. And so this kind of does two things. It kind of forces the students to go to the library, that's the first thing, and it kind of forces them to start using the Project Share. We're hoping that in the coming months, teachers will actually ask their students to start using Project Share. We'll have a series of trainings that go with those. So in the next few days, campus librarians at the secondary schools, we're going to roll these out in our secondary schools first because we really think Project Share is probably a better place for our secondary students to be right at this point in time. They're going to get a list of the usernames. Students can then activate their accounts. They just log in with their username and password. We'll actually have a little short digital discoveries on how students can do that in an upcoming episode, but probably students can figure out how to do it on their own. Once they enter their username and password, it's just like the teacher accounts. It asks them a few simple questions, and then they're ready to go. That's exciting news. That's exciting news because now all of our students have access to Project Share. We really, really want to push that out into our secondary campuses. We really think that Project Share is an important tool that our secondary students can use, and so that's an important step that we've made here in EPISD, that now all of our students have project share accounts. All of our teachers have already had project share accounts. Now all of our students have project share accounts. So that's our technology update for this edition of Digital Discoveries. Let's recap real quick. Atomic Learning. We have new place to log in to Atomic Learning. There's that new site to log into Atomic Learning. You just need to use your EPISD username and password. On Project Share, two things to remember. Our teachers now have new passwords that they can use to log in. The username stayed the same, password changed a little bit. It's their username plus the last 4 digits of their social security number. And the big news here is that our students now have Project Share accounts, and those Project Share accounts, they can use those to do those 21st century skills that we've been telling you about all these years. Students have a unique username, and their password is their student ID number. So that unique username they have to get from their campus librarian at the secondary level. We're going to do it on middle school and high school first. Okay, so that's our instructional technology updates for this edition of Digital Discoveries. Thank you for joining me, and we'll see you again on the next time that we see you on Digital Discoveries.